I'm your daddy.
I can be smart when it's important.
I'm your daddy. I'm
sorry to this
I'm your
man.
daddy.
Welcome to Daddy Dailies, a podcast hosted by Not Your Daddy's Films. On a film set, dailies are sent out after a shoot day so you can see the work in progress. Daddy Dailies are conversations that go behind the scenes so you can see what work went into the process and be better armed to succeed in the industry. Daddy Dailies, hosted by Not Your Daddy's Films.
Welcome back to Daddy Dailies. I'm your host, Vika Stubblebine, one of the co-founders of Not Your Daddy's Films. Today, I'm really excited. We are talking very specifically about the actor-director relationship with Lilian T. Mehrel and Ayden Mayeri, the writer, director, and star of HONEYJOON. Lilian T. Mehrel is an award-winning writer and director with a visionary sense of feeling and humor. She's the winner of the Tribeca AT&T Untold Stories Award for her debut feature, HONEYJOON, which we're going to talk about today. It premiered at Tribeca. Lilian earned her MFA from NYU Tisch Grad Film with a PDS fellowship and her BA from Dartmouth with a senior fellowship. She's been featured in Vogue, IndieWire, and The Hollywood Reporter, and she also enjoys hip-hop dance. Ayden is a rising star, fluent in comedy and drama with a cult following. She can currently be seen in Paul Feig's feature Jackpot opposite Awkwafina and John Cena streaming on Amazon. She can also be seen in the Peacock series Mr. Throwback opposite Steph Curry and Adam Pally. She stars in the feature Cora Bora on Netflix, which premiered at the 2023 South by Southwest Film Festival. And she was in one of my personal favorites, the Showtime comedy series I Love That For You, opposite Vanessa Bayer and Molly Shannon. She also has an amazing documentary making the festival circuit right now about her band called Etc. For those of you listening, I am talking to Lilian Ayden, who are the director, writer, and star of HONEYJOON. The logline is June and her Persian-British mom, Lela, traveled to the romantic Azores for a grief anniversary with contrasting ways of coping. A hot and deep surfer takes them on a tour as we surf the waves of life, loss, and flirting. An unforgettable ride. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. Welcome to Daddy Dailies.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
I want to start at the beginning. Before you guys started shooting, I think a lot of folks who are setting out to make their first features, and they might have producers on board or they may not, like, what would you recommend on how to contact actors you want in your film? Is there, especially like not having a huge resume to show like, hey, I have the stuff of a professional, even if maybe I don't have, 25 films to my name?
That's a great question. I wondered the same thing. It was my first feature, and as a writer-director, I'd mostly worked with actors who had been in a friend's film or someone who's like a non-professional actor who I loved, exploring with and making them an actor. And so, to get a star like Ayden, I didn't even dream that was possible. But I worked with an amazing casting director. Her name is Charlotte Arnault, and she told me the secret. She was like, if you have a banging script, actors want to work with you. And I was like, okay, note to self. The casting director sends it to the agents and the reps, and those reps, they send it to the stars. And that's how my script ended up in Ayden's lap. And then Ayden, do you want to take it from here? What happened next?
This all has felt very, very kismet and bizarre, honestly. Some of the things Lilian and I have in common and that brought us together. But I was, I've done a lot of comedy, and I really was looking, I told my team, I'm really looking for a special, probably like indie film that's a very singular vision where I can do comedy and drama that has, some sort of fresh perspective or honesty to it. And I don't care how small it is, like just anything you guys find, send me and we can sort through it. And you get all kinds of crazy scripts, but they sent me my managers, John and Ashley. They were like, I think you're going to love this. I don't even know how they found it. I actually haven't asked them if it just came in through Charlotte or
came in through my casting director, I'm guessing.
Probably.
Or maybe they saw that I won, $1 million from Tribeca and they were like, bing.
Honestly, maybe, but it was so funny because they didn't know the status of any of it. They didn't know if you had cast it or not. They just sent me this script and they were like, we found the script. Tell us what you think, and then we can investigate. And when I read the script, I was like, it almost felt like the first time I watched Fleabag, where just felt such an original perspective that felt so honest. It was almost embarrassing. Like there's things Lilian writes about that I've thought or felt that I wouldn't necessarily admit to anyone. And that's always such a mark of good writing, is it's getting into that stuff that you're like, can I say that out loud? And it really made me laugh. It made me cry. It was exactly because part of the thing I've been looking for was something that explores the complicated dynamic with identity, and grief too is always something I'm looking to explore, because I feel like grief it's always expressed so somberly, but I actually felt like the times I've been grieving are kind of the craziest, funny things, weird things I've been. And Lilian somehow encapsulated all that in her writing, and it just felt sparkly and rebellious in a fun way. And so I was like, long story long, I was like, I have to talk to the person who wrote this, and what do we know about it? My managers were like, I don't know. I don't know if it's been cast. Lilian was scouting, I think, locations in Portugal, and we couldn't get a hold of anyone on your side. So there was a few days where I was like, well, I don't know what to do. And then I looked her up on Instagram and I was like, I'm just going to be crazy. And I DM'd you.
Yes. We love a cold DM.
It's so special too, because literally you use some of the words that you're using now, you used then, you called it like sparkling, and you were like speaking straight to me. Like you didn't even know, everything you said felt like a code word for like, this person gets it on such a deep level. Like I'm a very like visual director, and one of my like earliest visual inspirations was the glimmers of sunlight sparkling on the dark ocean, because this film is so much about like the light and dark of life, and like pleasure in the face of grief. And the way you were describing like this sparkling act of rebellion of this character and this story, like seeking pleasure, like, and also what you said about, searching for something that was basically like layered comedy, not just like, some of the broad comedy that you're like so incredible at. Not everyone can do that. Like to be a comedic genius who understands human behavior on such a deep level is like a dream. And that's what so much of this movie is about, is riding that fine line between like what's dark and what's funny and what's makes you cry and what makes you laugh. And so it was just like, I just had this gut feeling that from the second that she slid into my DMs, I knew she was the one. Yes.
A real love story. I love that you made that Fleabag comparison, because I think, and what you were both saying about grief is so real. Like grief can be really funny and really like the things that you throw yourself into. I was really close with my grandmother, and when I lost her, I was like, trying to explain it to my best friend. And I was like, I want to be with people. And then when I'm with people, I want to be alone. And when I'm alone, I want to be with people. And I think some of those feelings are so aptly like showcased between the mother-daughter relationship as well, where you're like, I love this person and I want to do this with them, and now everything they're doing is kind of annoying me. And like, so I want to like have this special moment, but also you say this in your like director statement, and what I gleaned from my take was like, they just express themselves so differently. And it's really nice to see like both their similarities and their differences in that.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that, both of you. I think that Fleabag reference just means so much to me, because my inspiration, like as a writer-director, has always been people like that who like are so themselves and so honest about what life feels like to them that it hits us. And it like makes me feel seen in all the like embarrassing things that I would also necessarily not admit out loud until I make a movie about them. But like what you just said, it's about being human. It's like sharing this, what I call it's like the inside joke that we all share, you know? And that's one of the things that like makes me so happy that no matter like the age, the gender, the culture, like when people can connect to it regardless, that makes me feel like we've won, like as humans. Like, yes, we're all in it together, you know?
Yeah. And it makes you feel less alone. I feel, that kind
Totally.
of art.
Yeah. Your character at one point says, everything I do is to like in active rebellion and to feel alive. And I think it's really where you articulate the similarities that these two characters share. It's just that they're not really understanding each other necessarily and how they express themselves. And I, the sex element and the romance element of this film makes so much sense, because I think when you're grieving a death, like Ayden's character says, you want to feel alive and you want to feel like, there's that celebration of life element to so many cultures and funerals and their rituals. And I think that is like the thing that sometimes gets lost in films about grief is like, you're stuck in this sadness, which is very present and part of it. But like, you're also looking for like, I just want to feel something. I want to break through this muck, for lack of a better word.
I want it to be sexy. Like, please.
Yeah.
Yeah. Grieving, you don't feel very hot when you're grieving.
Yeah, and it's like sometimes I would think to myself, like, what is the opposite of death? Like, what makes you feel the most alive? Exactly. And like flirting, and like I think that's why like June's character, it's not just escapism, it's also like touching on something real, which is why like this movie, the two characters, like you said, they're very yin yang. The themes are yin yang, the visuals are yin yang. It's the light and dark of everything. And also it's like these embodied experiences of life, like whether it's pleasure or pain, like you'll have a release in your body, whether you're crying or you're finding, your pleasure again. And that's something, obviously, without too many spoilers, that happens to these characters. And yeah, like sometimes when Ayden talks about like our director actor process, she brings up this like homework assignment that I almost forgot about.
I love homework.
Because I was like, okay, this is my first leading role in a film, and I want to really do it justice, especially because there's a lot of emotional stuff. So, and Lilian was like, okay, well, here's what I really want you to do to prepare for this. I want you to eat a peach in the sun and enjoy life. I was like, oh, okay. She's like,
be in the sun, get sensual, like, because like I think that character of June is like what she thinks the key to like finding joy in life again is going to be is like, okay, let's enjoy it. Like, let's try. And like, there's something so like beautiful and relatable and pathetic about trying so hard to have fun and enjoy yourself, but like, I wanted Ayden to really feel the birth of Venus vibe of like what June thinks like being alive should be. And she's not wrong. Like, I'm not saying any of the characters are wrong. Like there's an element of that I think like, someone once wrote like on Letterboxd, like that they loved the way that June was so like unapologetically sensual in her body. And that wasn't like a question in the film, her confidence in her body.
Yeah. Which was something we talked about beforehand too, because I think we all struggle with how to express our sexuality, because as women, it's debated so much and justified so much. And you're like, how much of this is for me or for the public, or what am I allowed to do? Or, and so I was talking to Lilian about that struggle and how this film just doesn't have that shame. I mean, the mom has it and she kind of exemplifies it, but the film itself doesn't. And the way Lilian talks about bodies and, I was like, I'm going to be in a bikini and all this stuff. And she was like, well, bodies are like landscapes, they're and shapes and like the earth. And it just put it all in this beautiful context instead of like lose 5 pounds so that you, whatever.
Yes. I was like, more ice cream.
I love that. But you direct us all.
That's so beautiful the way you describe it, because I never thought of it as like anything, you're just like, you're your own goldfish swimming in your own water, and you don't really think it's anything like different than any, you don't realize it. But then when you describe it that way, I'm like, it's true. I genuinely find all bodies beautiful. I do look at them like the same way I look at like the landscape of the island that we shot in. And I think that there's something inherent in the movie that's about that too, which is like, we're alive. Everyone who is alive has a body. When you have experience loss, you have the perspective of how precious that is. Even though sometimes after you lose someone you love, you're like, it's bad here. I hate it here. Like, I don't want to be alive. But you're like, but I know it's special. I know not everyone gets to. I know I want to like live double for us. At least that's what, that was my personal struggle, I think, which is like, I know that like living life big is like what I want to be doing, but I don't really feel it. But then, you kind of like, you get there by trying and doing it. And like, actually one of the beautiful things about all of this is that like I set out to kind of explore and make a movie about like finding the beauty in being alive with all that it holds, and bodies and sensuality and release and islands. And then through the experience of making it and sharing it with audiences, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people like laughing and crying and coming up to you and telling us what it made them feel and how Ayden made them feel free to, be and live and grieve how they are and how they felt seen. Like, all of that has made me find so much beauty in life. Like this whole, what I mean? This whole thing like gave me what I was looking for. But yeah, basically I think that like we all could use more hotness, more flirting. Sorry, what did you say, Ayden?
I said more flirting. Like, I truly feel like when I go out somewhere and I see like young people or anybody flirting in the streets with each other, I feel like, okay, the world's crazy, but like this society feels okay at the moment. If people are in the streets flirting, like there is a level of safety and we're going to be okay.
Exactly. If you can get a crush on someone, even in your darkest times or you're going through something, like the human spirit is alive and well.
Nothing feels better than a crush to me. And I literally wrote this down. I wrote, June flirts with everyone, which I loved. I feel like we need more flirting in the world. It's a lost art. Like, where did the, I guess you kind of said, but the impulse come from for the character to express herself that way? Is that like, something, you've witnessed, or just like when you're thinking about these two characters and how to express their differences, like where in the process did that come from? Was that always there? And then Ayden, when you're exploring that side of flirting, like I think as a comedic actor, there is a version that's like very broad with like knowing as an actor that your character is going to get rejected. And I loved how real and subtle it was. Like, how did you go into approaching that?
Okay, I'll start with the origin story. I feel like on some level, like I think we watch movies to sort of live vicariously sometimes, to see characters do the things we wish we could do or that we would do if we were like bolder or braver. So I guess, some of my wish fulfillment of all the people I wanted to flirt with and never did came out there a little bit. Also, I think it's like, I think there is this like desperation element in running from her pain that is happening here, where it's like, can I have something that feels good? Candy, candy, it's the pleasure, literal pleasure in my body, something. But again, at the same time, I'm not judging her for it, and neither is Ayden, as we can see through the performance, like such humanness of it all. But like, yeah, I think part of it comes from that. Part of it comes from what we were talking about, these themes of like, the light and dark of life, and the humor of seeing them up against each other. And yeah, it's just funny to see someone try. And I think something people were like very confused about, they're like, but Ayden is so gorgeous. Like, how is it possible that...
Yeah, I was like, why is she getting rejected?
Right, like how did that happen? But that's the absurdity of life. Like everyone, you never know, everyone has their own story. Even one of my favorite screenwriting like tips I ever heard was, there's no such thing as a side character. Even the tiniest moment of, a hotel concierge, he has his whole own backstory. Like, you don't know what's going on with him and why he's not interested, and who's waiting for him at home or not. Like, so it's just like,
I know why he's not interested. He's interested in someone else.
You never know, like, what his first experience was like and why he loves older women. But yeah, those are the kind of things that I would talk about actually with each of my actors, like talking about process. Like, we would talk about like what their previous experiences were like, what their last breakup was like, what their relationship with their mom is like, and that would sort of inspire and draw things. Like, for example, there's this moment, again, without giving too much away, where Ayden's character and another guy, they are having a moment and he wants to be kind of like held like a baby. Does he have mommy issues? I don't know.
I love that. I love those like little, I'll get to this later, but I love those moments that are not over-explained. They're just specific character traits. And to your point, I love that screenwriting advice. It's like, especially approaching it as an actor, like you're like, well, I'm the main character in my own life, so I'm going to fill all this in. Yeah.
Exactly. But then to bring it back to our actual main character and how she was able to embody someone flirting while still like not judging the character or like, tell us, Ayden, how did you do it?
Well, what was really helpful was we got on Zoom for the first time and we talked about the script and we read some of the scenes. And coming from comedy, the goal is always, how can I make this moment or this scene funnier? And I feel like in a sitcom or in a real straightforward like comedy movie, that's great. You just want to be absurd and say surprising things and all of that. But I think at first I did approach her like she was flirting in a bit more of an embarrassing way because I thought that would be funnier. And I remember, Lilian, you were like, you know what? Let's do a version of it where you don't even say anything. It's all in your eyes how much you are trying to flirt with him. Because I think I was leaning too much on what I was saying to be funny or weird. And that opened up a whole other thing because there is, there's something about coming from comedy where if something's working because you can tell by people laughing. But when you don't have that kind of obvious comedy happening, in me, I'm like, I'm just staring out a window. Is this interesting? I don't know. And it took a lot of me trusting Lilian and her vision to be like, trust me, you thinking thoughts and looking out here is interesting. And in the context of the whole story, it works. It just in the moment, I'm like, well, this doesn't feel like I'm doing.
Ayden, thank you for trusting me because it's true. It's like, it's a different style of comedy. It is like, I ended up feeling like we talked about Fleabag and also like films like Force Majeure. I felt very seen by films that were both funny and emotional and cinematic and where it captures like that feeling, like, in real life when you're like sitting around and you see this sort of like moment happen out of the corner of your eye in real life. And it's like subtle and absurd. And like, it's like those moments of human behavior that I find so funny that I wanted to capture in like a very real way. And so with Ayden's trust and brilliance, she was able to just embody like, what is the truth of this character in this moment? What is this character genuinely trying to do right now? And like with her eyes, for example, or her, vibes. And what we end up laughing at, and like Ayden and I have sat together in, packed theaters and heard audiences belly laugh, like roar with laughter at these things that it's not like a one line moment. It's just this like recognition of our human behavior. And I love that so much. I think it surprises people how like deeply like people will be like shaking with laughter, but it's not, we can't like point to any one specific line or thing.
You guys both have touched on in the style and tone of the film. I am, like I mentioned, but I think before we started recording, I'm primarily a writer and director, but I went to theater school. I studied Shakespeare and I was an actor for the first like 10 years of my career. And I think with self-tapes and not getting to speak with the casting director or creatives, sometimes when it's like not an ongoing series or a movie where you're not familiar with the filmmaker's other work, it can be hard to know if you're nailing the tone. And if you can't speak with the creatives ahead of the audition, do either of you have any thoughts on like how to make that process easier or like more like getting at the truth of what the story is?
Totally. Well, I'm super curious to hear from Ayden because it's something I'd probably want to talk to my actors about on the next film. Like, what would be most helpful to you to see? Would you like to see like examples of like the tone that like I'm going for if there's something like that? Or would you like it to be more like unsaid and organic and see like, so it doesn't kind of make you feel like you have to match your performance? Like what would be helpful to you?
It's so interesting because when I talk to actors about stuff like that, I do feel like a lot of us have different needs with this kind of thing. Because sometimes you'll get information from a casting director that will say, you know, keep it grounded, but make sure you improvise a lot. But also like, this is a big comedy. So like, and there's just it's too much information for me. And I'll be like, now I'm in my head about how this is coming across instead of just being in it. And, but sometimes you'll read something or you'll just get the scenes. You don't get the whole script. And you are like, what is the vibe of this thing? So maybe it is, if there were tonal comps that could be helpful, but, and just a little bit of, for me, I don't like, just too much description of what the character should be. I usually kind of ignore it because I go, I'm just going to read this. I'm going to see how it feels to me. And then, and I know everybody says this, and when I first started acting and I was trying to figure out how to get better at auditions because it is its own art, I didn't know what people meant when they said make big choices, take big swings, because I'm like, but how? And
what does it mean? Yeah,
what does it mean? And I think I've realized for me it means when I've cast things that I'm producing and I finally got to sit on the other side, I could feel immediately when someone walked in and they were like feeling the desperation of, am I doing a good job? Is this right? Is this right? Yeah. I could feel it, and it made me so uncomfortable. And I was like, oh no, this is the feeling I've been bringing in the room. So I think just going, I have to override my fears of if this is right or my questions about if this is right. And just really make like a little mini movie for myself that's fun for me, this tape, that I've decided what my version of this is, and I think this is fun, and I don't care if it's wrong, this is my version. And then Lilian, I want to hear as a director, from what I understand, if you see someone make a bold choice, it's at least more, even if it's wrong, it's more directable. Like you could be like, that's not the right choice, but I liked this person as a performer.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I'm thinking of it. I don't know, Vika, if you were thinking of the question just for casting. I was already thinking about like when we're shooting the film.
No,
like
I want to hear it. Yeah.
Like you said, every actor is different, but what you don't want kind of like too much information. And it's something I'm always thinking about I'm always thinking about preserving this like magic, like life, like without kind of killing it with like too much direction. I'm always trying to kind of figure out this dance of like the right inspiration, or like almost like it's an experiment together where it's like, okay, what if I try giving you this, this, and this, like, let's see what happens when I tell you like this verb or that, so it's been drilled into me like from film school, like give verbs to actors so that they have something to play. Like you said about bold choices, it's like, if you're coming from a really strong point of view, if you make a choice because you understand, I think at the end of the day, what I'm really saying is it all comes from your understanding of what this character's behavior, like what are you doing, right? When we worked together, I knew that if you understood what I was going for in the scene, in terms of like what the scene is about, what's funny about it, what's emotional about it, whatever way you got there could be magic. Like as long as you got the core of it. And you would surprise me and do things that I didn't expect, and maybe you didn't even expect, because you're bringing it to life and you're very present. If I was like trying to focus too much on the outcome, if I was like, this is exactly how it should sound and this is how it should be, it's like you lose that life or something. So yeah, I think that like what I try to focus on now is like making sure we understand the meaning versus like just focusing so much on what the final outcome should look like. But it does make me wonder, like, for example, talking about tone and stuff, whether it would be helpful, like, before we start shooting to be like, this scene from Force Majeure, this scene from Y Tu Mamá También, this scene from whatever, like, this is a vibe or this is a tone or whatever. But it's like, I'm always trying not to kill the organic magic. So it's a question.
I heard Jack Schaefer, who was the showrunner on Agatha All Along, talk about putting her room together. And she was like, I gave everybody reference material because I wanted us to have the same like things we'd read or watched, but not to like tell them how to feel about it, but to be like, if I talk about this movie, you know what I'm talking about. And so that we have the same like kind of tools in our toolbox or reference points. And I've always really like, internalized that. I'm filming a mockumentary that I wrote. And I'm like, to what you guys are saying about, like, I don't want to kill the life and I want to work with these improvisers, but I don't want anyone to try to be funny. And so I've been thinking about this a lot of like, how do I convey that without having anyone get in their head or worry about the outcome?
I think that was our experiment constantly. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Ayden.
Well, I mean, I'm like, do I tell this story or not? I don't know if this is the thing that really helped me with that specifically kind of acting in terms of coming from comedy was something actually Molly Shannon once said to me about us. She had told me there was this kind of known story of there's a veteran actor and a newer actor and they're doing this play together. And it's a very serious scene. And then the newer actor's character interrupts by asking for coffee and it gets a big laugh because it kind of breaks the tension of the scene. But as the run went on, that moment got less and less laughs. And at the very end, the newer actor was saying to the veteran guy, like, I used to ask for the coffee, I get a huge laugh, now nothing. And the veteran guy was like, well, that's because you used to ask for the coffee and now you're asking for the laugh. And I was like, oh, and Molly Shannon's the queen of when she says something, she means what she's saying in a movie or a show. Like she's not playing at a funny character. She's so dead serious in what she's saying. And I think that makes a character so much funnier, especially in a mockumentary where it's meant to really feel like real people.
Yes.
Like truly mean what you say. Don't think it's being funny.
Yeah,
but it's hard coming from comedy to do that.
I think that was where we were going. It was like constantly like, what is this character really trying to do? What are they like human behavior? And what you said about like references, like we would do things like we had like a whole deck of images. We had like a playlist. We had like vibes. A playlist was fun, right? I feel like that was I like that.
And the visuals, I really understood because, like you said in the beginning, Lilian hasn't made a bunch of features. This was her first feature. Obviously, the writing's so good already, so I know we're in good shape. But her aesthetics are incredible and unique and singular. And what did you show me? There were some visual things you showed.
It was like a deck with like backstory, vibes, your closet, like your, all the like what bikinis you want to wear, and like the mood board of like the trip you think you're on of like this European like sensual summer dress trip, and like we I think the world building is so like when I think about directing, that like kind of auteur stamp of like you see what they're wearing, you hear what it's going to sound like, you see it all unfold, and that was like the world of HONEYJOON was like there from the beginning. But the beauty is like figuring out, like we're talking about, how to communicate that to your actors, to your crew, ultimately to the audience. Like it's every step of the way. What I've learned so much is directing is communication.
Yes.
And various forms of clarity and communication. And the better you get at communicating, you ultimately are communicating to hundreds and hundreds of people you don't know. It's beautiful.
It is.
There has to be a level of trust. Like I have to trust that Lilian has the vision. She knows what she's doing, even if I feel insecure. And she has to trust that her actors and crew members are artists coming with their own thing and they're going to do it. She doesn't need to, totally supervise every moment of what they're doing. So it's just this shared trust and communications.
When I was talking about that organic magic, I'm trusting also the sparkle and the talent of my actors, that almost is beyond any of our understanding. It sort of like comes through you. And I've seen it like come through you, you know, where it's like if we create the right environment, the right maybe keywords, you know, for direction, and we just sort of like sit back and watch it happen, amazing things happen.
I think there's a real confidence in your filmmaking. I love simplicity. I think that a lot of young, newer filmmakers are afraid of simplicity because they think it's going to be.
Call me young. That's fine.
We're all young, but
Well,
I think exactly young spring chickens. But I think there's like a hand-holding that some filmmakers want to do when they're starting out to really make sure their message is coming across. Like, is this like, am I conveying what I want to? Like, is the dialogue? And that can lead to like a little bit of on the nose dialogue or whatever. And I think that there's some really evocative silent beats in this story that convey so much emotion, and like there's trust obviously between you two and the other actors and your cinematographer and the audience to be like, you're on this journey and you're gonna get it and you're gonna take away what you need to take away from this viewing experience. So this is a really like existential question, but like, how do you find that confidence? Because I'm sure there's so much pressure having this be your first feature to be like, you know, the noise, like how do you turn that off of like, I want this to be good and I want people to get it and I want to like, you know, you've won the AT&T thing and the Tribeca thing and there's all this stuff to just push aside when you go to make the thing.
Thank you. You know, it's a beautiful question. I think in a way my confidence and like my North Star is the audience waiting for me. I started making stuff since I was like a little teenager. Mm-hmm. And even back then, I was already thinking about like, I can't wait to like surprise my friends, make them laugh, make my audience feel something. Like I was already, it's all a conversation with my audience. That's the whole point of making stuff. And so for me, like I'm already almost seeing like the moment that the audience is going to like gasp and be quiet, or they're going to like burst into that laughter that we've experienced together that became real. It's like this crazy thing where it's like, I almost like, I feel what other people are feeling. I think when, you know, people talk about film as this like empathy machine, they're usually thinking about us, the audience, watching characters and putting ourselves in their shoes. But the experience of writing and directing movies is an empathy machine for me. I'm thinking about other people all the time, how they're going to feel, what they're going to see into it, what it's, you know, it's like, so, but the truth is it's sort of this like, again, this trust exercise too, because you don't know for sure until you show it to an audience. You have a feeling, you have instincts. You've made, you know, I made a ton of short films before this, you know, and I pitched it and I won the biggest film production prize in the world, and all of that helps. But like, yeah, exactly. But until you really have your first audience screening, you're not totally sure. And of course, every single person in the world is going to experience films differently. But at my first test screening, when the whole room of people like burst into laughter at the same moment, when they all got quiet together, I knew, I was like, oh my God, like this is the whole reason I'm doing it. We're speaking this language, this universal language of human feelings. And it's like, that is like a challenge worthy of a lifetime. It's something that I'm like, I can obsess over and be excited about forever. Like, you know, and getting a taste of it hitting. And like, of course it doesn't hit everyone. Like there's always going to be someone who doesn't connect, but when like the vast majority wildly connect, it like fuels me and like lights a fire. And it's like, okay, there's something here, you know? And it fueled me and gave me the fire to believe in sharing this film in theaters, because, you know, with indie films these days, they don't always make it to theaters. And not only have we made it to theaters, we're still playing in theaters 2 months after opening.
Yeah, and it's just an incredible feat. Like you keep getting extended. It's wonderful.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And like people will like, you know, come and like send me messages like strangers. Well, to this day, every day I get new messages of people being like,
my coworker DM'd you.
exactly. So it's just beautiful.
Yeah, shout out Natasha Sabur. She was like, I had to message her. I loved this movie so much. She's also a good Persian.
Amazing. So Aiden and I will like send each other, like Aiden will be like, someone stopped me on the street and recognized me from HONEYJOON, you know? It's like an amazing.
It's like spreading, but that is what I love so much about indie film, is that there is no intervention from some big studio with notes about like, well, will people understand this moment? It's trusting, actually the audience is very savvy and smart, and they will understand it and interpret it in their own way. We don't have to spoon feed them everything. And you don't get that in bigger corporate projects because there's so much input. This was so auteur. It's Lilian's point of view. There was an intervention, as far as I know, from Tribeca. Tribeca was super supportive of her vision. And it just makes me so happy to be like, yeah, people want art by humans. Like, this AI can't do this. This is like... It's very...
For the people in the back. AI can't do this.
AI can't do this.
Asking about this, like, director's confidence and, you know, with a first-time feature, I just want to shout out Ayden. She's not just the star of HONEYJOON and a big movie star. She also directed her feature documentary just recently, and it won South by Southwest.
No, I was going to ask you, Ayden, about that. Like, what was... well, I'll do that towards the end, because I have two more. I know we have, like... 10-ish minutes left. So I want to ask about Portugal.
Let's talk about Portugal. Let's get into it.
Port of tourism, show this on the airplanes. Like, it's so beautiful. I went to Portugal with my family like a year ago, 2 years ago. We didn't go to this area, but was that always the setting for the film? And like, how did that element come together? Do you speak Portuguese? Like, what was that?
I went to Portugal for the first time in my life in June 2024. I went to the Azores Islands, and you know, I always remind people, like, this film is inspired by real life things, like real grief, a real trip to this island. I do have a mom. Nothing happened with a hot tour guide. Guys, get your minds out of the gutter. but yeah, it is fictional, but it was a real trip that inspired it. I did not plan to make a movie there. I did not know that this volcanic island in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean would change my whole life. I get home, this script pours out of me. One thing leads to another. 1 year to the day after I was on that island, I was standing on the stage at the Tribeca Festival pitching HONEYJOON, and I won $1 million. 1 year to the day after that, literally the same date, we premiered at Tribeca. 1 year after that, June 2026, we opened in theaters.
Wow. Yeah. So what was the best part and the biggest hurdle about shooting in a country that you're not as familiar with?
For sure. Well, yeah, I mean, I skipped over Portugal and the beauty of it.
I loved that. I loved what you said. I still have chills.
Well, that's the thing. I think there's so many chills and like serendipitous things. Like, I had never been to these islands, but when I got there, I felt this strange connection. And that's the beauty, I think, also of, like, in the movie, you have, like, Joao, our hot surfer tour guide, and June and Lela. They have unexpected connections, too. Like, we're all in this together. We all share a long goodbye. We all, you know, are dealing with some secret things that we're not sharing with everyone right away. Like, that unexpected connection was inspired by, you know, real life and the way that, like, we're all connected in the, you know, light and dark of life. And, like, So when I was there, that plus the, like, now I've started to talk about, like, my director's stamp as, like, this holy trifecta of dark comedy, layered emotion, and stunning cinema. And when I see, like, the potential for those three, I start to get these sparks of inspiration. And, like, what better place for that than, like, going on a grief trip to this beautiful island. And I was like, oh, there's dark comedy material here, but there's also feelings, and it's beautiful. Like, there's something here. And it just, this idea of, like, grieving in paradise was just, like, that contrast was inherently funny to me. And just imagining being this, like, odd couple surrounded by, like, happy honeymooners, and it just started to flow from there. And it's so beautiful. There's hot springs, there's waterfalls, there's dolphins. You know, you see them in the movie. We saw them in real life. We went in a hot spring. Like, we did that stuff for real. And And it like this thing about nature is like, it's both this silent witness to our pain or our joys. Like you sit on the beach, the waves of the ocean will keep crashing regardless of whether you're sitting there crying or having a makeout. But it's also this like reminder that we are part of it. We are alive too. Like just we're as alive as that dolphin, you know, who's so full of life and presence. And it's like, it kind of like slapped me into life, you know, to be in nature like that. And yeah.
Ayden,
so
what about for you, like being in another country? Like, you know, it's all a big gamble, and obviously you guys established this trust and everything, but what had you filmed like in Europe before?
I had never been to Portugal before, and it was the maybe most beautiful island I've ever been to. They say it has 4 seasons in one day. So every half hour it would be raining and then sunny and there's a rainbow. And it was so much of it was filmed outside that it really was a feat that Lilian and the crew pulled off to continuously adjust to what was going on with the weather. Lilian was rewriting scenes because things were unpredictable, like a fog, like a vista we were supposed to see that was foggy. And so then we had to change the scene to fit that. And it was extraordinary and amazing and challenging.
It really was. The whole thing was a race. And like thinking about like the topic of this podcast as like the director-actor relationship and process, I was thinking about it so much as like, it's like you're an Olympic athlete when you're an actor and I'm your coach. That's what it feels like. And it feels like it was like a crazy race that I had to not disturb the performance of the Olympic athlete by letting them know that a tornado is coming. You know what I mean? Like I had to like keep it cool, like let them know like, no, it's going to be fine, because it would affect the race, you know, if they were worried about that. So it was a lot of just being like, no, it's fine, we got it, when like, you know, that it's about to start raining in 5 seconds, or like, you know, things like that, or there's a storm coming and we're going to lose electricity. Like it was a race. It made me the best director I've ever been. You know, by the last day, I felt so like in it. Like I don't know, Ayden, if you have this feeling when you're acting, but like during production, I feel like as director, and maybe Vika, you know this feeling, I feel like I'm in a different zone where I'm hyper focused. Like, you know, when people have an accident and their adrenaline kicked in and they were able to like lift a car, it's like the adrenaline is on, you're hyper focused, you can do crazy things. So by the last day, I was so much better and in it than by the first day, that I swear if you had told me direct another feature starting tomorrow, I would have been like, great, bring it. You know, I was like ready.
Yeah, you're like, oh, another lap around the track. Okay, got it.
Yeah, exactly. But I do feel like so much of like the race and everything, it made us invincible. Like by the end, we're like, we can do anything, you know? Ayden had to like do some of the most emotional scenes when we had like 5 seconds left of sunlight and it's like, go, like turn it on now, you know?
Yeah. And dropping in like that it's so impressive to me every time I can watch an actor do that. Like it's really beautiful. Speaking of the emotional stuff, we haven't really talked about your mom in the movie. And there's this really beautiful moment where you and then she are framed in the same doorway at the tour guide's family home. And you're talking about each other and saying things that you might never, ever say to each other. And I guess I'm really curious how each of you would describe their worldviews. And then, Ayden, how did you bond? Like, did you guys go out to get coffee? Did you try to like meet before the shoot, or did you discover your relationship on set?
Well, one thing that was so helpful to me that Lilian said to both Amira and I, Amira, who plays my mom, was that there is this underlying feeling towards each other that the other one is grieving wrong. And I felt that so deeply because when I have been grieving, I've experienced people have so many judgments about how you should grieve or ideas about it. And it was so apparent in their, like you said earlier, they're going through the same thing and they're actually looking for the same thing. They just have different ideas about how to get there. And so I think Amira and I met, we did meet over Zoom before.
Yeah, we had like one Zoom before we all got to the island, for them to meet, because Amira lives in Paris, and Aiden lives in LA. And yeah, I love what you said, Aiden. I feel like accepting and understanding, like, that each character, like I'm not judging either character. Like, I'm not trying to say there's one right way to grieve. And I think they both totally embodied that. And again, back to what we were talking about, where like, whether you're playing a comedy moment or a drama moment, just playing the truth of the character. I found that, like, when you guys were in it, when you're in the scene, you're both playing the truth of each character. That moment at Grandma's where they switch places at the window is very, very special to me, because it's the yin yang, even if it's like totally opposite sides, they each have a little of each other in there. And there are all these moments switching places, and ultimately like the big switching of places of pain and pleasure, and the release that they each thought they needed a different kind of release. But like, even that moment when they go in the water, on the anniversary, and they take their clothes off in front of the ocean, like,
I love
June,
that.
yeah, and June, who's always wearing light clothes, has like dark underwear underneath, and vice versa for Lela. Like, they have a little of each other in there. And I love the moment at Grandma's window, because they're appreciating something in each other, and like, underneath everything is also love. And like, Aiden and Amira were able to create such a complex, nuanced relationship that other people, like audience members, will come up to me and be like, I can't believe like how real those characters and relationships felt.
That's such a nice compliment. And that is partially also, we spent that week before really talking out what things meant with you.
Yes.
And there's just a lot of conversation about what's going into this that helped infuse everything.
And we did do some crazy things like nature adventure. Like, we did go in a hot spring all together as cast members. Yeah, there's some bonding moments, But like, yeah, I think just when you have like, I'm thinking of something that would be helpful to other creatives in their process, But when you just have like such a gem of a star, it's like
you cast well. You cast the right people for the roles, and people who understood the assignment. And I think that is, when you do that, you can have the trust, and you can have the room for the sparkle to come out and let people do their thing. And so, kudos to your casting director. Kudos to you. And like, it's just like, for the directors and writers, filmmakers listening, it's like, being really clear and specific on your story and your vision is going to bring all the other pieces together.
It's true. And not to be afraid to challenge, or to, if something doesn't feel right or it's not to your vision. Like, sometimes, when you're working with stars, it's like, maybe someone might be nervous to keep pushing, but, we would, even if we barely had any time, we'd be like, reset, another take, don't cut, let's do one more, just like to get it there. We were relentless.
Because I wasn't sure earlier if you were asking about how to make a good audition tape and what that meant, but I am curious about Lilian's experience on that side, getting audition tapes.
Yeah.
What for you stood out, and what made you like interested in someone?
It's so hard because, for you, it's just, I knew it since you slid in my DM, so it wasn't even your tapes. But I think like a core understanding of the human behavior of that character, right? So like, for example, we have a concierge in the film who's eating caramels, and he's sort of like enjoying the tease of just like his existence and his seduction of like slowly eating. He's enjoying himself. And for someone like in his audition, the actor ate blueberries in that same way as you see in the final film. Just like the way he enjoyed, the way he enjoyed the effect it was having, on this dude who was reading the tapes like script with him, Like, I was like, he gets what this is about, right? So like, yes, of course, like there were different things I was going to try and shape, and I had a different vision for like a little bit more nonchalance, versus like too much being like a bright, chipper concierge or whatever. And like, I was like, I know we can get there because you understand the core of this behavior. And same for like, each one of the actors and their characters. Like, for example, Amira Kazar, who plays Lela, who I found in this like unbelievable way, because yes, like her rep sent her the script and she sent in a tape, but also at the same time, I was watching the movie Call Me By Your Name while I was casting as a visual reference for the lighting and the European vibes and the cinematography. And I was like, where am I going to find Lela? And she's Timothée Chalamet's mom in that movie. And I was like, this is crazy. Things like that would happen that are, again, like Ayden said, the serendipity is insane. But like when I got her tape, she understood this character who's so single-minded about grief on all the levels. Mm-hmm. And that's what makes her so funny too. Like the dark comedy of like when June asks her, let's please not talk about dark stuff when we meet the tour guide. Like, let's have a good day, right? We're good. And then they get in the car and she immediately starts talking about really dark stuff. And it's like the audience is laughing, and we're not laughing. Like we're laughing over words that are really dark about like women being killed and horrible things. We're not laughing at that. We're laughing at the human behavior that we all connect to, And like, so I think my best advice is find genius, comedic, dramatic actors who understand humans, who are also, let's be real. It's like, you are a star. You've done huge movies. Your last movie before me was with Paul Feig, like a huge, like inspiration for me from Freaks and Geeks days. It's like if you had told me when I was a teenager that one day I'm going to be directing the star that was just in like the Freaks and Geeks, movie guy, it's like, what? But your willingness to experiment, to explore, to push yourself, to try things, like, you did trust me. You were with me. We were like a team experimenting to find the life, to find something special. And we both would know when we hit it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I feel like that to have like, no matter whether it's your first or your 100th, to have that approach of curiosity, openness, experimentation, like how can we together create something magic? Like that, I think, is what makes it shine.
Did your parents see the film? Had they? Yeah.
Both of you. Both of our moms have seen the films with us in the theaters.
I love that so much.
Yeah. Lillian's mom was at Tribeca, and my mom was at Mill Valley Film Festival and brought all her friends. It was so cute.
Oh, cute.
And I don't know if it's a coincidence that at both festivals we won an audience award, whether our moms were, working their charm, or I don't know.
Yes. Okay, because I don't want to take up too much of your time, but Ayden, I do want to hear about your documentary. Congratulations on the success thus far. Can you tell us about Etc.? It's an amazing story from what I've read. And being in front of the camera and then also making your own things. I'm sure there are a lot of actors out there who I speak to who they get nervous about making something, when they haven't before. So if you could tell us just a little bit, tease it.
Well, first of all, thanks for bringing it up, because it is really special to me. And I do feel like HONEYJOON and Etc. have had this bizarre parallel. HONEYJOON's a year before, but now we're doing the festival circuit the way HONEYJOON did the festival circuit, and Lillian's given so much helpful advice and resources and being like, don't listen to this person. You don't need you don't need to hire someone to do that. You could do that, or you should call this person. So that's just been such a gift. But it is scary or for me, it was scary because it's a documentary feature about this bizarre thing that is happening to me regarding my band I had in the year 2000 when we were tweens, and we made a CD.
Yes.
That ended up on the internet 20 years later, and we got signed by a record label in 2023.
Incredible.
It's been so crazy. So the reason I even decided to direct it was because our record label, Numero Group, very cool indie label, Douglas McGowan, who's our guy over there, he had said, these stories, sometimes people will come to us and want to make documentaries about them. If you have footage, maybe you should get ahead of it. Maybe you should talk to people so that you guys could be in charge of your own story. And I was like, oh, I love that. And I was talking to my friend and co-producer, Barry Rothbart, about how crazy this story is. and we were both like, should we make a documentary together? And I'm like, yeah, we should reach out to documentary filmmakers I know. And he was like, why don't you direct it? This is your story. No one knows it better than you.
Hell yeah.
And I kept being like, but I've never directed before, so I certainly can't. And he was like, yes, you can. I will film it, and all the camera stuff I can help with. But it was so important to have, and all my friends. And then when I went to the girls in the band and said, I'm thinking about directing this. Do you guys hate that idea? They were all like, of course you would direct this. You should tell our story. We don't want someone else coming and telling our story. And we used to make movies all the time, and you would direct that, so this makes all the sense in the world. But for some reason, it really is hard. It has been a journey for me to be comfortable putting my ideas out into the world and standing behind them. Because as an actor, if you do a movie and it's not good, you're like, well, I didn't direct it or write it. Like, I don't know. I'm just the actor. And so when you direct it, if it's not well received or something, you have to own that it's yours and it was your idea. And that scared me a lot. But really watching Lilian do it, watching other female directors who are close friends of mine, like Hannah Utt and a few other amazing directors, just put their ideas into the world. It's like, I can do that and I should do that. And it has been so special, the whole experience.
Even just hearing you say that, it's so inspiring because it's like, we have to be brave to do this work. We have to be brave on every level. I always even look at actors and I'm like, how do you do it? That's so brave. You're putting your face out there and your body and all of that. And it's so beautiful to see other people being bold and brave and doing it. And kind of like Ayden's story, it reminds you of when you were a teenager, when you were a kid, and you would just do things. And both Ayden and I talk about serendipity. Like, we both were making stuff when we were teenagers, and here we are still doing it and like trying new things and being brave and putting ourselves out there. And hopefully it inspires everyone listening to this to like tell your story and make your thing.
I think it's contagious. I do think it's contagious. And for me, it was like when I was 10 or 11, I thought my ideas were brilliant and I wasn't questioning them at all. And then I went into junior high, and that's when I started to feel the self-consciousness of being perceived and not wanting to be weird. So this exploration has been me going back to the before times and trusting, that I can put my ideas out there. And it is something my friend Hannah said she was like, in our business, a lot of the wrong people are bold. Like, you have to be bold to get a movie made, and a lot of bad people are bold. So we need good people being bold, and it's scary.
It is, but it's so worth it. And it's like the perfect log line for this episode and for you two as creatives, and kind of the perfect note to end on. But I do want to ask if you guys have a hot take you want to share.
I have one that came to me, which is, okay, my hot take is that a movie date is a perfect first date. And I'll tell you why. Because there's a lot of pressure, when you meet someone, you're like face to face. It's like, what are we going to talk about? Blah, blah, blah. Like interview you, figure out your life. No. What if you're in the dark? You're sitting next to someone. You already know you're kind of attracted to them. Maybe your hands like are kind of touching. You get to watch something. Maybe they like get you a treat, or vice versa. And then afterwards, you can talk about it. You can talk about what it made you feel. You can see if you laughed at the same things or if they didn't laugh at all. Red flag. You can see did they try to touch your hand? Did they eat all the popcorn? You can learn a lot about them. And I feel like there's something about just taking the pressure off, experiencing something together. And like now I'm like more than ever just like the biggest fan of experiencing movies in theaters, because we've experienced together like what a difference it makes when people are like sharing it and laughing together and feeling stuff together. So I think movie dates, first dates, talk about it after. Why not?
Yeah, I love it. Okay, so my hot take is that, and I will preface this by saying, whatever you want to do to your face or your body, plastic surgery, filler, whatever, your body, your choice. I think in a period piece, I don't want to see your veneers. I'm like, I people had fucked up teeth. We did not have the dentistry, and it really takes me out of it when, you know, I'm in like the 1800s and someone flashes like a perfectly white, or if you have veneers, maybe we just do a little something with the makeup so it's not as perfect when you're in a period piece.
Yeah, I love that. I go back and forth all the time about that kind of thing because, you know, similarly, it's truly no judgment. If everyone wants to feel good and like they want to look good, and not saying that as I get older that I wouldn't do anything, but you look at our biggest stars like Meg Ryan and Billy Crystal in When Harry Met Sally, and they're these real characters and they're these real people, and they're so fun to watch, and they don't have this perfect Instagram symmetrical balanced face that's just cyborgy. And I just think we all want more of that, and it's authentic, and it truly makes me sad. First of all, with women, it's a lose-lose, because if you get older, people are like, she looks old. If you get work done, they're like, ew, she got work done. If the work looks good, they're like, okay, wait, you look great. If the work looks bad, like disgusting. I can't believe you got work done. So there's just
you can't do it right. You know, like as existing as a woman in the world is hard.
It is hard. And so I think at the end of the day, you'll never win that hamster wheel race. You just have to say, like, I have to love myself and appreciate myself and do whatever it is you need to do to feel good. But it just, I agree with you. It's refreshing to see real faces.
And it is amazing how, like, when you do see something in a movie, you're like, oh, that's okay. Like, I'm allowed to be that. You know, it matters.
Totally. I love it so much. And I think it just I think the cinema that really sticks with me, and When Harry Met Sally is in my Letterboxd top 4. And like, I don't know if in today's day and age, Billy Crystal would be considered a leading man type, you know, like would he have gotten that audition? And it's like, but he's perfect. And like, you know, people don't fall in love with others because, I mean, you might be attracted to someone because you love the way they look, but you fall in love with them and want to stay with them because of who they are and how it meshes with who you are. And so I think that's what's so magical and timeless about that film is like, they're so hot to each other, you know, and to us because we're watching them fall in love.
Yeah.
So true.
I totally agree, because this is so related to what we're talking about. And, you know, I learned this with Lilian and HONEYJOON, and now I'm learning it with the Etc. documentary, is if you are online reviewing stuff on Letterboxd or Instagram or whatever, and you think you're being funny by taking down a tiny indie movie and saying something really mean about it, that affects so much of the journey of an indie movie. It's like, so, to me, I'm like, that's so lame. Save your snarky reviews for blockbuster movies, things that are on Netflix or Amazon that have budgets and are getting distribution. It's so hard for a small piece of art to get distributed to the masses. And unfortunately, distributors read that stuff and they look at what people are saying. So it does affect us a lot.
I love that. Yeah, I'm definitely like, that's a clip.
That's 100% agree. That can be the hot take. Just repeat that. That's my hot take too.
I think that is really helpful for people to know, because I think, you know, the internet, we're all like a comedian. We're all like safe behind our screens, and it doesn't feel as maybe harsh or mean because you're alone, but it is, you know, other people are reading that.
I was just going to say, I think some people see movies and they go, they're all kind of the same. Like they made a movie and they're all, you know, but they're not, they're just not. Like tiny indie movies, you know, I paid for most of the documentary myself and, you know, was in financial ruin after that, but it was important to me. And so it's like, it's hugely affects an individual artist if it's a little indie film. It's not the same.
So true. It's so true. People don't know.
Where can people find your work?
You can find everything, honeyjoon.substack.com. There's like the links to like the screenings, to the Blu-ray, to the merch, to everything, and all our fun updates. And also at HONEYJOON Film on Instagram. And you can find both of us on Instagram. I guess you'll link it all down there. So
Yeah. I will link it all in the show notes.
But yeah, I think obviously, like, I want people to come see it in theaters if you can, if it's playing in a city near you. But if you have a Blu-ray player, that's really cool too, and more exciting stuff to come. So stay tuned, sign up for updates, and I can't wait to share it with you.
Yay! Thank you guys so much for being here. I could talk to you for like 2 more hours.
I know, really. Honestly, now that we started the hot takes, I feel like we could just keep going. Like, I was like, oh, I have hotter takes now.
I want to thank you guys so much for like being so open and sharing your process and like your feelings about it before, during, and after. Like, this is the kind of thing that our audience comes to listen for and learn from you guys. And like, what you made is beautiful, and I'm sure you're going to continue to make amazing things. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's such a joy to get to do it with Ayden. We barely get to do these things together, and it's just like so special. And thank you for like highlighting this part of the creative process.
Yes.
It's awesome.
Oh my God.
It's really special to talk to another creative filmmaker about it, because I do think you really get what we're talking about, and like showing people this behind the scenes stuff is important and cool.
Yeah, such an organic conversation that just like flowed.
Yes. I'm like, let's go get coffee.
Daddy Dailies is presented by Not Your Daddy's Films, a social impact organization dedicated to educating and empowering women and non-binary creatives in TV and film. If you like what you heard today, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a positive review. And if you want more Daddy episode insights and links to what we talked about, join us on Patreon/NYD Films. Daddy Dailies is produced in partnership with Robert Bailey and edited by Carly Tamarin, Vika Stubblebine, Claudia Restrepo, and Gracie Strauss. See you next time, Daddy.